Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, January 10th, and it is a reasonably sunny day where I am. So we're filming in the same location as we were filming in the last few versions, but this is the not Christmas version of that location. So I have been successful in getting the Christmas decorations down. Have they all been put away? No, but they're very close. I'd say there's maybe about an hour's worth of work left to get everything put away. Although one of my projects is to maybe reorganize where the storage for that to improve it somewhat. So about an hour's worth of real work to get it away, and then maybe a little bit of time to reorganize some stuff. So I hope everybody's had a good week. I hope you've found some time to do some stitching. I know that for many this has been a very troublesome week, but I'm hoping that in spite of everything that's happening, that you are finding some time to do some crafting. So whether that's stitching or something else, I hope that you are taking some of that time just to give yourself some peace and, well, just a sense of calm. That's usually what I find when I'm stitching. It just gives me a moment to sort of settle down and work on something. And with that, if you are new to my channel, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. It's always great to have people who come back and tune in. With that, let's just get straight into the stitching. If you are a returning viewer, you know what my projects are. So we're going to start off with this, what I'm calling this year is the Never-Ending Nativity, which I'm hoping will turn out to be ironic because I'm hoping that it will finish. So I am working on the Marbeck Nativity. I'm still working on the camel. So this is what it's supposed to look like. So what did I get accomplished this week? Well, as I commented in last week's video, one of the challenges for me was going to be, now that I was not stitching monogamously, how well was I going to manage working on multiple projects? And the answer is, I'm not doing great. I don't seem to be doing well with making sure that I'm regularly alternating between the two projects. Now, part of that may have to be due to the fact that I was participating in a challenge in a Facebook group about stitching on something for at least an hour every day, and I think what that meant is that when I was sitting down to stitch, that piece was what I was focused on, as opposed to sort of saying just do only your hour and then move on and do something else, which is what in my head, which was what I was going to do, but that's not how it worked out. So this is the week where I try to improve how I balance between my two projects. But here's where I got to. It's going to look a little weird. So here's where I got to on the camel. And I'm going to start up here. So one of my things was I was going to finish all of the rays at the top here. These infamous rays that, as far as I'm concerned, start in the middle of nowhere and go till, you know, the edge of forever. So those three rays, so I was successful on that front, so I got those. Those are completely done. Rolled over the scroll rods. And then, as you can see, so I got the bush completed, and I started working on the shadows. So down here, there's about 5 colors that go into the stuff that go underneath the camel. And there's 3 colors that still need to be back stitched in the top of this blanket that's covering the camel. So my plan is I'm going to do 1 color down here, and then 1 color up here, and then 1 color down here, and because then hopefully that will, because I look at the back stitching that needs to be done in here and I'm not excited about it. So that's how I'm hoping I'm going to get myself through that. Is I can't work on some of this, which is a little easier, so that's the alternation. So that's what I'm planning on doing. So technically, again, as I said, Not as much progress on the camel as I would like, but isn't that my sentence every week? But as I reminded somebody else somewhere at a Facebook group over this last week, hey, every stitch is actually one stitch closer to finish than you were before. So there is more accomplished here before we get to the scary stuff in here, which I don't know how to do. But anyway, so that's where the camel is this week. So at least there has been progress. It could have been worse. There could have been no progress on the camel, but there was progress on the camel. I'm just trying to keep everything sorted here. And so the project that my New Year New Start, which is Lady Scarlet's Journey by Just Nan. Yes, a 20-year-old pattern. And I was very, I appreciate the comment that came in from someone who said for a 20-year-old pattern, it's holding up very well, which I agree. Even though it's a 20-year-old pattern, okay, coming up on 21 years old, it is holding up well. So the comment also was commenting about in my stash of 20-year-old charts, did I have ducks with blue ribbons around them, which, yeah, if you go back 20 plus years, the number of ducks and geese with ribbons around them was fairly prevalent, but I do have to say, even back then, the ducks and the geese didn't do anything for me, so I don't really have that in my stash. So that part's I can appreciate going. I may have some 20-plus-year-old charts, but at least they're holding up well over time, which which is something to which I think we all aspire to, is to hold up well over time. So here is part 1 of Lady Scarlet's journey. So as you can tell, the beads are still here, so I've done nothing with the beads. I'm still debating whether I should just put the beads on or not. But that's what Lady Scarlet's Journey Part 1 looks like. And so where did I get to? So I had a very productive week. Lady Scarlet's Journey Part 1 is complete, except for the beads. So I would say other than about 25-ish beads that need to go into that sucker, Part 1 is complete. And so what I've started, so technically Part 1 finished where this green stitch here is. So actually the last little bit of this gate and fence down here is actually part of Lady Scarlet's Journey Part 2. But I continued on and started working on the border. So I haven't done my hour today that I need to do for my challenge. So once I'm finished this video and it's uploading, I am planning on spending my hour working on this project. But yeah, I'm having a little moment saying for something that I've been holding in my stash for about 20 years. It's a little embarrassing to sort of go, it would have taken you about, 10 days to finish Part 1. Yeah, okay. I couldn't have, over the last 20 years, I couldn't have found 10 days to get this thing started. Yeah, all right, anywho. So that's Part 1. The other thing I was going to comment on, which I didn't comment on last week, is that actually each of the bands in these charts, actually, she has a name for each of the bands. So I'm just going to quickly run through them. So band number 1 is called Winter Sky, Final Flurries, Spring Sunrise, Early Bird with Worm. This one is, this leaf stitch is Lady Scarlet Wakes Up. So this big gap here in the middle is actually where the ladybug charm goes. So Lady Scarlet Wakes Up. Stampeding Rabbits in the Pansies. And June Roses. So I had a little moment when I was stitching that band and looked at the name of it and went, we're already at June? All right, there we go. But there you go. So other than 25 beads, part 1 is completed. So I'm not calling it complete yet for Stitch from Stash, because of course I haven't put the beads on, but if all goes well, I'm expecting when I do my January reporting for Stitch from Stash that I will be in a position where it can be complete. So that's part 1 and the start of part 2, and in fact I've actually stitched more than part 2. I've actually started in on part 3 because this border goes down all the way to the end of part 3. And someone else made the comment about saying, you know, when they like how Just Nan patterns look, but the part that they don't like is how finicky they get with the number of color changes. And there are a large number of color changes. You know, so I had made the comment last week that this is not using variegated thread, that this is actually done using 3 different colors of DMC in stitches of 3 at a time, in the 3 various colors to get that color, or this variegation coming along this border. And that's, I will agree that for people who have become accustomed to variegated floss or monochromatic patterns, the fact that you have to change your threads as frequently as you do in this pattern is the part that annoys people, and is very typical of patterns, you know, 20 years ago. So, for example, the early bird with the worm, excluding the worm, there's, believe it or not, 5 colors in that bird. There's 3 colors again at the top for the flowers. So I understand where people go, it's too annoying that congratulations, I'm doing 7 stitches in this color and that's it. Yeah, but again, this is similar to, if you go back to my videos, my very early videos when I was working on a Stony Creek. Stony Creek is very similar in that they have a lot of color changes and a small number of stitches. But what comes with that is the variegation and, quite frankly, the control over variegation. So if you were trying to do, you know, these flowers with a variegated thread and you were trying to come up with a uniform variegation, you know, for each of those flowers, you would likely end up needing to fussy cut your thread to achieve that look. And as we all know from my autumn project, I do my best, but I still don't get it quite, it's close, but probably not exact. And so that's the difference there. Finicky, but for me, you know, it's my tried and true sentence going, if I think the end result is worth it, I will do it. And so I do, like, you know, it was worth it to me to go through all of those color changes and to get that stitch up the way it is. But that's a personal choice. And that could be why someone chooses not to stitch this particular pattern, because they don't want to do that. And there are other patterns out there that are much better suited to the style of stitching that they enjoy. So that is part 1. But I thought I would come and show you part 2. So this is part 2 of Lady Scarlet's journey with its lovely bead pack. So yeah, there's a bead pack for all of these. And so this is what part 2 looks like. So as you can see, this last little bit of that fence for the June roses was there. And so I'm certainly not one that says, you know, because it carries over onto a different page, or in this case, a different chart, I was not prepared to stop stitching in that white. So in fact, I had both charts out so that as I was stitching the white and the green, that I could make sure that I got all of that band completed. But there we go. So just so you know, by the time we get down to here, this is October. So that's what Lady Scarlet's Journey Part 2 looks like, which is what I will be working on that particular one for this week. I'm just looking over here because I do have notes. All right, and so that is my stitching for this week. you know, as usual, you know what you're coming. I'm not the person who over the course of a week works on like 12 different projects. There's a part of me that really wishes that I was, but it's not me. So there you go. So with that, even though I said last week I wasn't necessarily going to do free charts every week, I am going to highlight a free chart. Now I don't have anything to hold up, so this will make it a little more challenging. But in the Victoria Sampler Facebook group, so it is through Facebook only. So if you don't do Facebook, I'm sorry, this will not be relevant to you, so just scoot ahead a couple of minutes. But if you are on Facebook, and I will confess I'm only on Facebook so I can be a part of stitching groups. Those are the only groups I'm a part of, stitching groups. That's why I'm on Facebook. I have practically no friends. I have a few friends on there that are stitching related, but I have no friends on Facebook because I'm only using it to be a part of stitching groups. But the Victoria Sampler group, they are releasing a free chart. Well, it comes out in 3 parts. So 3 parts every month. And what it turns into, it's a block per month. And they will be doing this for all of 2021. So the first 2 parts of January are released. Part 3 should be coming out towards the end of this week. And they are only available, so the January pattern will only be available for the month of January. So as soon as we hit February 1st, that chart, those 3 charts will no longer be available and you won't be able to get it, which is why I'm highlighting it now, so that if you want to participate or have access to them, that you can become a part of the Facebook group. The thing for me is to make sure I have to download them every month. So I don't have to download the parts as they come out. I can download them after part 3 comes out. So there's 3 parts per month. I just have to make sure. And they did make a comment about saying 3 parts, which gives you a whole extra week to make sure that you get everything downloaded before they disappear. But they have said that they are doing this for all of 2021. So that at the end of 2021, you will have 12 monthly patterns that they will have released for free. The first one has a snowman on it, and so far, of the 2 parts, what I've seen, I like that, so I'm making sure that I'm getting those downloaded. I'm probably, because when things are released in series like that, I like to make sure that I have all of the parts. So even if there's a month that comes along where I don't particularly enjoy the part, I'm probably still going to download it. Just so that I can say that I have all of the months. So that is the free chart that I'm going to highlight for you. I will put a link to the Facebook group in the notes below. So if you want to become a part of that group so that you have access to those charts, you can do that. So that's the free chart that I'm highlighting this week. With that, let's move on to Stashquisitions. So I'm going to show these and then I will roll into how I'm faring with Stitch from Stash, because I can see a few people out there maybe going like, wait a minute, you have Stashquisitions. So I will address that in just a minute, but let me show you what I've got. So I have 3 pieces of fabric that I'm going to show you. These are all from Under the Sea Fabrics. So I'm just having a moment. I need to read my tags before I say it. So this is called Looking Glass, is the color name. I've got a piece of 32 count Lugana. In fact, this is actually Opalescent Looking Glass, and it is by Under the Sea Fabrics. Now that's not going to look well in this light, but so yes, the color is not coming through terribly well. So this is a gray, purpley, not heavily over-dyed. So I've talked about that before, like the ones that are, to me, are very splotchy in terms of how they come out when they're multiple colors. Those don't necessarily appeal to me. I like the more watercolor effect, which is why I tend to do them on even weaves. Again, this is from Under the Sea Fabrics. And I got this because I'm totally copying Pam from Just Keep Stitching, and I will put a link to their channel below as well. But in one of her videos, she was talking about that she had worked on a pattern that she'd gone to a retreat, you know, back when we used to be able to have them. She'd gone to a retreat, and on the table where people were displaying some of their finishes, someone had done from Mirabilia, Maidens of the Seasons, and I don't know whether it's one or two, but the winter one, done as a standalone, so just winter, and they had done it on this particular fabric, and she said it looked amazing, and so she promptly went and bought the fabric, and last year she completed that particular design on this fabric, and showed it, and I looked at it. So I had not gone to whatever that particular retreat was, but when she showed her finish, I looked at it and went, that looks fantastic. I love that. I must do that. So I too need to do that. Hence, I went to Under the Sea Fabrics and got the exact same fabric that she did hers on, so that I can do Maidens of the Season, the Winter Maiden, on this particular fabric. Yeah, man, that's just not, I don't know. Anyway. And following Emily C. from Eclectic Possessions rules about nothing should travel alone. We've gone from no pattern should travel alone to nothing should travel alone. So I added a couple of things. So again, from Under the Sea Fabrics. So this color is called Misty Morning, and you'll be very surprised, but this is actually a 32 count linen. And again, I got this very specifically for, I'd seen somebody stitch something on this particular fabric and loved how it came out. And so I have the same chart. So I went and got the fabric as well. But this is an example of where hand dyes are, each piece is individual. Each piece stands on its own, and you can't assume that the piece that you've seen will be necessarily replicated. So this is similar to what I saw, but it's not as gray as the one that I had seen. So I may be contemplating trying to do maybe some slight over dye. I don't know. Check back later. I like the concept of it. I just think it needs to be a little grayer, and then it would be perfect for the chart that I was thinking of. So stay tuned to see if over the course of 2021, if I am brave enough to try over dyeing an already dyed fabric. I don't know, we'll see. If I do it and if I like what I've done, you will see it again. If I do it and I don't like what I've seen, I'll probably still show it and go like, okay, this didn't work out, and now I have to figure out what to do with this piece of fabric that looks, who knows what I will have done to it. But stay tuned. Can't tell you whether I'm going to be brave enough to do that or not. And then the third piece I got is called Lapis. And this is, again, on a 32 count Lugana. So there you go. A couple, okay, 3 pieces of fabric to add to my stash, which leads me into how am I faring on my Stitch from Stash project. So I'm doing okay. And so these 3 fabrics, let's just hold them up again because, you know, fabrics are always joyous to look at. So these 3 fabrics, if you go back in my videos, I think Under the Sea Fabrics was having a Black Friday, Cyber Monday week sale. So whenever I made the comment about that, that they were having a sale, that's when I purchased these fabrics. So it's taken until, so these arrived this week in the mail. Again, so between American Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday shopping, the mail stuff that was going on for Christmas, I am not even remotely surprised that it has taken until the first week of January for these things, these pieces of fabric to arrive to me. But I will say, in the land of hand-dyed fabrics, getting them to Canada, actually, this is not bad timing as far as I'm concerned. And again, because in September, I had come up with my plan for my 2021 stitching plan, I was okay. If it took another month, would I be okay? Sure, because I don't need these right away. Now again, I've also said that my plan for 2021 allows for enough, there's enough flexibility in my plan to allow me to change the projects that I'm working on. Yes, absolutely. So could these potentially come up over the course of 2021 and I might need them? Sure. Do I need them right now for my plan? No. And that's okay, because I have them. And I've largely targeted what I think I'm using them for, which is also beneficial. So those are my fabrics. Stitch from Stash. So again, those were pre-purchased. So they do not count towards my budget. I had a moment this week where I was looking at something on Friday, which would have been, January the 8th, and I was going, I might need to get that. Fortunately, there were a very limited number of these things available, so I'd sort of seen an announcement about it, went and looked, and saw a couple of things where I'm like, ooh, that looks really good. And I did actually go on to the website when they were actually released, because I was going to contemplate purchasing them. But fortunately, I would say 18 minutes after the time that, the stated time that they were going to be released on the website. And 18 minutes after they were released on the website, the ones that I was contemplating were gone. The quantities were zero, they were sold out, no longer available, and done. So that worked out really well for me. Technically would still have fit within my budget, but I had a moment where I'm like going, we are on day 8 of Stitch from Stash, day 8, and you're already contemplating some things, but it worked out. They were sold out before I even got a chance to even make the debate as to whether or not I was going to purchase them or not. So technically I'm doing okay. I wouldn't say I'm doing awesome because I had that moment, but I'm doing okay. So I haven't, to date, I have not spent anything. So from a budget perspective, I'm doing really well. So I've not spent anything. And as I've said, I'm 25 beads away from being able to do a claim for having finished something. So Stitch from Stash, you only report once a month. You report at the end of the month where you are for your budget, what you've spent, what you've sold, and what you've completed. So I'm not reporting into them yet, but I'm also using these videos to make sure that I can keep track. So if I report to you every week, it will make my end of the month reckoning easier, hopefully. So that's my Stitch from Stash update. And with that, I'm going to show a previous finish. Now the topic for this week is Just Nan. And I've chosen that topic because Lady Scarlett's journey is a Just Nan pattern. So I thought it was only appropriate that I show a Just Nan that I've completed. Now, for those of you who've been here before who worry that, I'm really good about stitching them and not getting them to a fully finished state, which is absolutely accurate, but I do have a fully finished project. It hangs on the wall in my house. So this is Just Nan Snowflowers. This is Just Nan chart number 240 called Snowflowers. I will put the details in the notes below. Believe it or not, I have done this on the called for fabric, which is 32 count exotic orchid linen. So yeah, linen, did it on that. Did it on the called for linen with the called for fibers. And so that's what it looks like. Now, the interesting thing on this one, I will say, is that I discovered that this particular linen is really hard to do matting with. So it was enough of a problem, you know, I think the framing here is fine. I'm the one who signed off on this. I think it's fine. Do I think it's perfect? Probably not, but I couldn't find anything better. And trust me, I and my framer and my framer's wife, who is an artist and does paintings, she was in the room too. This was the best we could come up with. This is not how the chart shows it framed. It shows it being framed with a pale matte. I just didn't like it when I was doing mine, but so that's that. So this is Just Nan Snowflowers, stitched and fully finished, and hangs on my wall and has been hanging on my wall for quite some time. But that's a Just Nan one. Yeah, and the weird pause is because this is where I'm trying to make it my screen capture. If you're wondering, it's like, why is she just standing there smiling and looking a little weird? That's why. So that's my previous finish. Again, I will put the details about the chart and the fabric in the notes below, along with a link to Just Nan's website, so you can see what they have available. And so why have I chosen to talk about Just Nan? Well, I've chosen to talk about Just Nan because I'm currently stitching a Just Nan. I also feel like for a lot of people, they're a designer that in the larger stitching world right now is not a designer that gets talked about a lot. Now, does get talked about, people show pictures, and I get all of that. But the pictures that are generally being shown, because a lot of what she's currently publishing from a design perspective are charts like this. So this is the Hazel Fun Witch Mouse. And so for a lot of people, they may go, oh yeah, Just Nan is the one who makes these, you know, mice that you stitch up. And so yes, I will confess, I have, actually that's not true. I was gonna say one. This is not my only chart. I think I have one other mouse chart in my stash. But I can see a lot of people saying, I don't really like the mouse. I don't want to stitch a mouse. What am I going to do with the mouse? Because quite frankly, I do that myself. You know, so there are clearly a lot of people out there who really enjoy stitching the mice. And again, it's not like I can't say that I don't have one, because I have at least one, and I'm going to say I'm quite sure I've got another one sitting in my stash to do. And that's a lot of what she has been publishing recently. But she has a lot of older patterns, which, you know, as Lady Scarlet's journey has shown, or at least from my perspective, what Lady Scarlet's journey has shown is that they hold up really well over time and that they don't necessarily look dated. So what I thought I would do is I would just run down through some of the Just Nan charts that I've got in my stash. And I will say that all of these charts are older charts. But you can see on Just Nan's website very clearly whether or not the chart is still available for purchase. You can't purchase directly from their website, but if it shows that it's available, you can just go to your LNS or your online one where you shop for, and if they don't have it in stock, they can order it. And I will say Just Nan is very good about showing on her website whether or not the chart is still available or not. So this one is called Flying Colors. So butterfly, as well as this design down here. To be perfectly honest, why it's called, I think she maybe did a series called Lessons on Linen, because this one's called Volume 2. I got it because it was a butterfly and I liked it. And I do have a friend of mine, actually I have seen this stitched up and it's quite lovely. And I think it probably got added to my stash after I saw hers. But not terribly big. So the stitch count on this is 48 high by 72 wide. So a very reasonable size, so not a huge commitment. This one you're gonna have a little laugh at. I'm just looking to see if I can't find out what the copyright on this one is. 2004. So this is called Four Wishes. So again, another one of those band samplers, which I do say I really enjoy a good band sampler. And again, Four Wishes because it's 4 different seasons, starting with winter, spring, summer, and fall. And I have made the decision already that I am going to stitch this chart on the same fabric that I'm stitching Lady Scarlet's Journey. And in fact, when I was cutting up the 28 count Pewter Jobelan that I'm doing Lady Scarlet's Journey on, I cut the piece that I had, because again, these are narrow band samples, so I could get both of these out of the same fabric, and I still had a piece left over. So I cut up the 2 pieces into the sizes that they needed to be and had them serged, so when I put this back into its spot in the stash, the fabric is going with it, because that at least that decision has been made. This is not a near-term stitching plan, but I like this one just as much as I like Lady Scarlet's Journey, but Lady Scarlet's Journey is older, which is why I'm starting with that one. So that's Four Wishes. This is called Freedom Flowers, which I think you're going to start to see. The part about the Just Nan charts that I actually generally enjoy most are the ones that are these band samplers. But again, you know, as you can see from Lady Scarlet's Journey, the band samplers go quite quickly. So again, it's not, I can honestly say that I have not spent an entire day stitching on Lady Scarlet's Journey at all since I started working on it in 2021. So, you know, if I sat down and I went, I'm doing a hardcore weekend of just stitching, I think you could make a lot of progress on any one of these band samplers. So this one is actually called Remember 911. So there were a lot of designers at the time of 9/11 that were coming out with charts. None of them really spoke to me, but I liked this one because it does say remember, but it's not overtly in your face, which worked for me. I told this story in one of my other Flosstube videos. When 9/11 occurred, my brother was actually working in the World Trade Center. He's fine. He actually wasn't even in New York City that particular day. He was away on a business trip. But it is a day that I very much remember. And even though I have not, I have not stitched this on a timely basis, because here it still is, complete with its beads and its, you know, specialty threads that you need to do this. This is still in my stash, and I do plan on one day stitching this. This still actually works for me. Dream Garden. I will confess I did not go on to Just Nan to make sure that all of these were still currently available. So I also have this one. This is, so she does have a series of angels. This is called Grace, and this one was because my friend's daughter is Grace, and so this was being stitched for her. She also has some like this. So this is Floral 15. So this is a 15-sided Biscornu. Yeah, so it's a little bit ridiculous that I'm doing this because you know how bad I am about completely finishing things, but the concept of the chart worked for me. I did not buy these special pins that you could buy. Those probably at this point in time you probably can't get those anymore. But I knew I was never going to be putting those into the Biscornu anyway, so I didn't purchase them when I bought the chart. I still like this enough to say, hope one of these days I may stitch this. I may stitch it when if I ever get it actually completed and made into a Biscornu is anybody's guess. I got nothing on that one, but anyway. Anyway, so that is just a quick little trip through. Actually, I'm surprised because Just Nan also has a huge series of those band samplers that are all Christmas themed, and I probably have about 10, 12 Christmas themed. 12 sounds a little much. Maybe it's 10 solely Christmas themed band samplers from Just Nan that I have in my stash, and hopefully one of these days I will be doing. So with that, that's a quick little review of the concepts of the types of charts that you can get through Just Nan. So again, I will put a direct link to the Just Nan website in the notes below. Again, you can't shop directly from them, but you can look through the catalog. You can see that they're still available, and then you can go to your local needlework shop and ask them to order that for you. And with that, I hope everybody has a really great week. We're into a new year, and as Anne of Green Gables says, every day is a new beginning with no mistakes. So hopefully, as we are at the start of a new week, we can look forward. And I hope everybody has a great week, and I hope that you make some time to stitch, and that what you're stitching on brings you some peace and some enjoyment, and works on those creative juices that we all have. So I hope you have a great week. I look forward to seeing you next week.